Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we are going to be doing a reaction video. I don't really do those, but it's kind of a news video too, which I do every once in a while. We're going to be taking a look at a trailer which dropped yesterday, I believe, for Grand Tactician, the Civil War, Whiskey and Lemons, which is the first DLC that is coming out for Grand Tactician, the Civil War. I've played a lot of Grand Tactician on the channel. It's sort of a grand strategy and tactical war game. You fight the entire Civil War from the point of view of the supreme commander of either the Confederacy or the Union. There's a whole big economic system that you don't play a lot with, like the economy largely runs itself, but there's a whole supply and demand aspect, and depending on your decisions in charge of the armies, that'll influence the economy. Depending on the policies you put forth at a national level, it'll influence the economy, but you don't generally micro the economy in kind of like a Victoria sort of a way. But the DLC for Whiskey and Lemons is actually going to change the game kind of a lot. We'll look at the trailer here in a second. These are just some screenshots that you're seeing from the game. But effectively, to me, it feels like it's going to be a completely new game. It's using the system that's put in place for the grand strategy side of the game, but it's becoming a role-playing game in a way that the original really wasn't, right? The original is sort of this strategic game that is putting you largely in like a god mode, and in the DLC, you're limited to being one commander, which is kind of something that the Scourge of War games did in a lot of their scenarios, but they were always scenario based and were not like national Civil War based. So you still have this grand strategy war going on, but you are a cog in the machine. And I think that's the best way to preface it. So let's jump into the trailer now. I'll let it play with the audio on, and then I'll kind of share some of my thoughts, some of what we saw, and kind of get your thoughts as well, maybe in the comments down below.
It seemed like the whole of America was mobilizing to fight for the America they believed in. Such great armies required great leadership, worthy officers to lead them into battle and to victory. Many legendary commanders came to the fore, generals like Lee, Sherman, or Stonewall Jackson. And most importantly, you. Create your own Civil War character with a unique personality and set of skills, and sign up to serve your nation. Take command of your very first unit. Follow your commander's orders and see the elephant. Lead your men honorably or otherwise. Increase your prestige, gain fame, and get promoted to higher positions. Once in position to do so, play a key role in your nation's war effort. Become one of the greatest Civil War generals, whose deeds will be recorded in the history books for the future generations to draw inspiration from, and to name military bases and equipment after. And, sir, remember, when the Civil War gives you lemons, there's always whiskey.
Okay, so there you have it. That's the trailer. I'm going to replay it again here while I'm talking, so we're just going to see the same images again, and then I'll probably throw some screenshots up here as well. But that's the trailer for Grand Tactician, Whiskey and Lemons, the first DLC for Grand Tactician, the Civil War. I feel like we learned a lot between either the trailer or if you've looked through the screenshots that have been posted on the Steam page. There's a link in the description if you want to follow the game or wish list it in the Steam page. So you can check that link out. But effectively, the game has a regimental scale, or the DLC has a regimental scale. The original game, when it released, had a brigade level. That was the lowest you could go down. In this DLC, you're going down to the regimental level, which I think makes a lot of sense. If you're role-playing as an individual officer and you're building yourself up from the beginning, starting at a regimental level probably makes the most sense. A lot of individuals were elected or made regimental commanders because they, I don't know, raised a regiment or whatever. Political influence could certainly get you to the command of a regiment to start, or money or whatever. And so that seems like the right place to start. Most officers, or many officers with no experience, would have started out at a more junior command. I don't know in a game like this that you could really do much if you were like commanding a battalion or a company. So I think regimental makes the most sense. And there's a lot in this trailer that I think is very interesting. And so I'm going to try and pull tidbits out, and I'll stop it here and there, or just look at some of the screenshots. I think it'd be a better approach to kind of talking about what we saw here. One thing that I think is interesting about the DLC is it does say there's a new regimental command, which I believe is looking at the Eastern Theater only. There's a new regimental campaign, but it also says on the Steam page that the regimental campaign can be played either in the story mode, which is really what the core of Whiskey and Lemons is, where you're an individual commander, or in the normal mode where you're kind of in the God's Eye Supreme Commander view. So that's interesting. I'm curious to see how that'll play out, especially the tactical battles, because brigades are a little unwieldy at times when you've got, you know, a chunk of 2,000 men. You can't really easily refuse the flank there. So you end up commanding tactical battles like brigades or regiments, but you don't have the same flexibility that you would if you had the ability to break those up a little bit more. And I would like to see also how the AI behaves, because I think the AI in the original game was one of the weaker elements of the game. I know they spent a lot of time working on it and enhancing it. But if the AI had more tactical flexibility with smaller units and smaller chunks, I wonder if they'd be better. It always felt like the AI was too easy to flank, and you could just kind of march around the enemy and they'd just get flanked and swept off the field. If the AI had regiments to deploy, they might be able to more easily bend their line back while still facing the main threat to the front. They might make flanking more difficult. So I'm hopeful that maybe the regimental scale will make the game a little bit more compelling, both in the story mode, but also in the normal campaign mode. So I'll probably play both just to see, because I really enjoyed the core game. It has some big flaws, or it did when I played it. But it also is tremendous in a lot of ways and unique in a lot of ways. And so I'm pretty excited about this. One of the other things we saw is there seems to be a character creation step where you basically say what year you're born, and then you go through a questionnaire answering different questions about yourself, which will influence the traits that your character gets. We saw that in the trailer where it said things like you're secular, or you're, you know, popular, or whatever. There were like different traits that your commander could have, which were things in the original game. You could be, you know, defamed, you could be famed, you could have a pre-war reputation, you could be a political general, but it seems like they're giving more options there. Secular, I don't ever remember that being a thing in the original game. And I don't remember reliable being another command. There was an image for a lion that they didn't hover over. So I'm hopeful that they're going to give you a bunch of additional customization options for your character. Again, a lot of these kind of games where you build a story like this, you go through a pre-game questionnaire and you fill out different options on a multiple choice thing, and that sort of defines who you are. But if there's, you know, 4 or 5 screens of those and 4 options each, I mean, you could build a pretty diverse set of characters, and I think that's interesting to see. But what I think really stands out is the game really seems to be leaning heavily into the role-playing element. Throughout the trailer, there were these constant things that popped up on the side that you could kind of see that looked like events or different sort of personalizing things that you have to deal with. I know one of them that popped up was that it looked like venereal disease popped up, so I don't know if you can get like VD. There was a drunken brawl event that popped up. There was a food poisoning item that popped up. There was something that popped up about being involved in an important project. So I don't know if, like, in the game there's these policies that can occur, like emancipation or blockade runners or military level 1, 2, 3 that influences like how long soldiers can be recruited, whether they can be drafted, those kind of things. I don't know if you can like play a role in picking which, of those policies get selected, if that plays a role in how important you are. But those are all things that kind of popped up throughout the trailer that were kind of like, huh, that's interesting. I wonder how that will play out. But it certainly seems like they're trying to be, hey, your fighting battles is only a piece of this game, right? And so if you really want to be a regimental commander and you really want to work your way up through the ranks, there are these other things that are going to go on that are not on the battlefield, because most soldiers, a majority of soldiers spent a minority of their time on the battlefield, right? Like, I think as I've seen, and maybe it was a Civil War movie or another movie, but like 99% of soldiering is sheer boredom and 1% is sheer terror. And that's, that there's an element of truth to that, I think, especially in the Civil War, when you have such a long conflict. You have soldiers in many cases that were there for the duration, and it's, what were there, 15 major battles on the Eastern Theater, and like 7 of those came in 1864. So like there were, during the Overland Campaign. So like there weren't really these constant campaigns in the way you think of when you think of campaigns like in World War II, where a soldier on the Eastern Front might be sort of in the thick of things for a long time. I mean, even in wars like World War I, soldiers spent a minority of their time on the front line trench and a majority of them further back. And I think that's even more so when you go even further back, where there are just fewer battles that occur. And so I'm curious to see how they're going to weave in all the different things that can occur and all the different things that are relevant for a regimental commander. One of the other things that I thought was interesting was it looks like there's like relationships, which is great. That's important. That's something you should see in a game where you're a regimental commander. But it looks like you have to manage your general staff of your your staff for your commander. So if you're a regimental commander, your staff's pretty small. But if you're a corps commander, you could have a staff of 15, 20 people who are all helping you organize and manage this huge body of troops of 20,000 men. I would love it if the staff that you're given given control over increases or decreases based on your rank. But there's a screenshot where you can see your general staff. So who's your aide de camp? Who's your adjutant general? There's a corps staff. Who's your quartermaster, your subsistence master, your master of ordnance. And then there's a companions piece too, which I don't know if this is like, hey, these are your friends and who you spend a lot of time with, but there's a companion element to it as well. I don't know that we know a lot about what all that'll look like in the gameplay, but this is going really heavily down the role-playing side. Additionally, there's items. So like it looks like you can have different quality binoculars. You can have different types of sabers or swords that you wear on your hip, different types of revolvers. You can have a mount. So like that's probably really appealing to folks who are like, oh, Lee and Traveler, his horse were well known. The two of them together sort of are a piece of the Civil War myth. And so like, hey, if you're a well-known commander, I don't know that I know any of the corps commanders' mounts, Longstreet's mount, Hancock's mount. I've never really heard of that stuff, but I think there's some. I don't know Grant as well, but I believe I've heard some stuff about some of his horses. So like that's a thing that would be important for a lot of folks in this era, and so I think that's pretty cool. Like you can spend your money in different ways. There's also something that popped up that was about like, again, what you're spending your money on. So there's this actions screen. That apparently you can educate yourself. Like it's almost like a card game where you use education, personality, wealth, influence, maneuvers, management, all different types of cards. So you could, like, one of them was buy stocks to get richer. So like, I don't know, maybe you can get yourself involved in scandal by getting involved in shady stock dealing, or study leadership to become more versed in military tactics, especially if you're, coming from a political background. That might be important. Who knows? Maybe you can run for president. I don't know if that's true. I haven't seen anything about that, but that would be pretty cool if the game had that. Granted, it was after he was relieved, but McClellan ended up running for president. So maybe there's a political side of things as well that you can use to angle for new promotions. It's interesting to me because the Steam page really doesn't share a lot, and I can literally read you everything the Steam page says about Whiskey and Lemons. It says, Whiskey and Lemons introduce a new career mode that adds role-playing elements to the Grand Tactician, the Civil War campaigns. Create your own character, follow your commander's orders, gain prestige, promotions. When in position to do so, play a key role in your nation's war effort. This is your Civil War story. Features, your story. Create your own commander, create a character with unique personality and skills. Role play your way through the war to see how your character develops. Do your part. Start your career as a low-ranking commander following orders from higher-ups. Gain promotion to allow more control over the course of the war. Manage your career, gain prestige, and earn money to equip your units. Recruit staff officers to your headquarters and decide your personal actions. Make history. Play a role in your nation's war effort and become one of the legendary Civil War generals. Read about your epic adventure in your biography. And Regimental Campaign, a new campaign covering the Eastern Theater of the Civil War that can be played in normal and career modes, offering regimental level gameplay. So that's it. That's all they provide on the Steam page, and yet this trailer has a ton of little nuggets. These screenshots have a ton of little nuggets around how this game may play, and I'm really excited about it. Grand Tactician was one of the games that I was the most excited about when it came out. Was it last year, this year, whatever it was? Last year, and I played a ton of it, and it was one of my top games of the year, despite, in my opinion, the game having some fatal flaws around AI and then sort of some performance concerns and bugs and whatnot. They spent a ton of time ironing out those bugs, trying to improve the AI, and this is a very small team, guys. We did an interview for the Single Malt Strategy podcast with them a while back, and it's not a big team. I think there's, at least at the time, I think there were like 5 or 6 people heavily involved in the game's development. I think there was like one programmer, an art person, and I think there was a sound person. I know they've been working with Lionwork Film Studio, which is like a sort of historical film company. That branding is all over this game. But it's not a huge project. It's a small project. It's a passion project, and we don't see other Civil War games that do things on this scale, or we certainly haven't seen a role-playing Civil War game. I don't think since Scourge of War kind of had elements of that, but again, it was like limited to one battle at a time. We've really never seen a game try to be this ambitious, and their original game was incredibly ambitious, and the trailer seems to be trying to be equally so for the DLC. So I'm very excited about this, if you can't tell me rambling about this for almost 20 minutes. And I think there's a ton of information. So let me know your thoughts below. Let me know what you think. And I'm curious to see where this goes. I hope you guys are having a great one. Thanks again for tuning in. And that's all I got to say. I don't think there's anything else. I'm just looking through here. I mean, obviously the tactical battle stuff is still here. And it looks like maybe it gives you a little more information about casualties as they occur within your units, but I don't know that I saw anything dramatically different about casualties. I did see some weird thing about like, I guess your relationship with your men is important too, which makes sense. But I did see something about like, your men think that you don't care about them or whatever. So that might matter, or like you fell from your horse or something. So again, really leaning into the role-playing stuff, and I'm excited to see where this goes, but that's enough of me rambling. Hope you guys enjoyed. Appreciate the putting up with my my lack of brevity. And as always, guys, until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I'm out.